So next up is Britt, co-founder and CEO of Chime. If you've opened a bank account in the last couple of years, there's a good chance it wasn't with a traditional bank, and Chris is a big reason why. Chime is now the country's largest neobank by doing the opposite of what most banks do. There's no fees, and they actually help people stay financially healthy. Chime just filed for an IPO, so we're catching Chris at a great time, and as he's preparing his next step, so please welcome Britt.
Hey, Samir.
Hey, bud. You see that like pre-IPO strut in his step? He wanted walk-up music. I said, we're not doing that today. So congrats on the IPO filing. How you feeling? It's been a long time. How long ago did you start the company?
2012. Yeah, Ryan King and I started in August of 2012. And my son had just been born a few months earlier, and he's about to be a teenager, so it's kind of wild. He's like the physical embodiment of the company, which is sometimes gives me comfort when I'm like, oh, stuff's going sideways. It's just a preteen at this point.
So when you did a down round, was he having potty issues? Like what?
Down round?
I'm just teasing.
We feel great. It's awesome. When I notified the company earlier last week, I guess it was Tuesday, I hit the Slack that this thing's going to be on the SEC website in 5 minutes, and literally the building started shaking, and you could hear the roar. So it was, obviously it's just a small milestone, but it felt really good just to walk around the office and just see how proud everyone was from, so many people have been there for so many years, and it just, I could really see and feel how much this meant to them and how proud they were. And obviously I was incredibly proud as well. And man, it's been a long journey for Ryan and I, lots of ups and downs. We were not the, prettiest girl at the dance, I'd say, for the first few years of the company, but the last few years has definitely worked out pretty well.
It's an amazing story, and so congrats again. But let's go back to the beginning. When you started Chime, what problem were you trying to solve?
Well, I looked across the marketplace and saw that I had worked at a company called Green Dot that served really the unbanked, people that couldn't get bank accounts. And I saw a huge opportunity to serve people who had relationships with traditional banks that they just weren't happy with. And there's so many millions and millions of people that had that sort of situation. Generally, probably not people in this room, but for me, it was very personal. I grew up just outside of New York City, just outside the Bronx in a town called Mount Vernon. My parents were divorced. My mom taught me, the hustle, the grit. She was selling vacuum cleaners door to door, literally. And I got really lucky at an early age growing up in this tough town where there's literally metal detectors to get into our high school there. And I just got to, I was connected with the sort of people that Chime serves today. Everyday people that oftentimes live paycheck to paycheck. It's about 70% of America. And I got really lucky in that I lived in this apartment building, and there was an old man that lived literally in the apartment below. He kind of took me under his wing when he saw that my mom was out a lot, and I needed help getting a ride to school or getting some food after school. And this guy, Joe, literally took me under his wing, helped to pay for me to go to a private school, which really changed the trajectory of my life, and then ultimately paid for me to go to college. And I really, it probably sounds hard to believe that actually happened, but it happened. No strings attached, just a great person that wanted to give back and help someone make progress in their lives. And I think that really touched me personally. And it's a big part of our mission here at Chime is to help people make financial progress. And we think that education is the most powerful lever of economic mobility. It certainly was for me.
That's great. So you mentioned you were at Green Dot, and before that you were at Visa, these like big behemoths, Visa, right? The big company. So what are some of the things you had to unlearn from your experience at a big company as you did Chime?
Well, I had worked at a few small companies before that. I came out here in '99 when the first internet boom happened. I worked at a company called Flycast, which was one of the first internet ad networks. Yep. And I really got to, I didn't realize that at the time, but man, I just loved working on tight-knit teams that wanted to disrupt large industries that moved fast. I love that at small companies, the cream could rise to the crop, to the top quickly, and didn't matter your title and so forth. So that's where I really got the bug that I think ultimately prompted me to start Chime. But Yeah, I wouldn't say Visa really moved that way. Fortunately, the division I worked in was kind of a separate team that wasn't fully in the Borg, if you will, so we had a lot of autonomy. But I learned a lot about how payment systems work and how the bank relationships work, processing systems, did a lot of consumer research, and it really helped me understand the needs and the pulse of everyday Americans who we ultimately ended up serving here at Chime.
So, show of hands, how many people here either know of or use Chime? Okay, more than half, so that's great. Walk us through Chime's product of evolution, from where you started, where it's now, and maybe walk us through, because a lot of these guys are very early stage, and they're going to, they know that their original business plan isn't going to be their final business plan, and there are going to be some really tough decisions they have to make. Walk us a little bit through your journey with Chime there.
We certainly had a pretty big pivot in the early days. So we started with the problem we thought we saw in America, which is that the rewards on credit cards were awesome and the rewards on debit cards sucked. So we'll innovate in that area, and we'll create a bunch of technology to innovate in the auth stream. So the moment you swipe, you get this cash into the transaction that would like fund the discount. And we built this pretty slick tech. We rolled it out. Remember, we had tens of thousands of customers, and I fielded this survey research, and I said, hey, why? You seem to give us high marks in terms of satisfaction scores. Why don't you set it up for direct deposit and use it as your primary bank account? And the number one answer was, oh, I didn't know I could even do direct deposit to that. So we were just like completely off in terms of so focused on engaging people in a lightweight way in hopes that we'd be able to get them to direct deposit and use this as a primary account. And we came to the conclusion ultimately that the best way to develop primary account relationships is just hit people over the head with a 2x4. Like, this is the best bank account solution there is in America, and will help you address your most acute pain points. And it turns out that it isn't about rewards. It's about liquidity, it's about credit building, it's about avoiding fees, and it's about getting into a healthy rhythm of savings. That is what most everyday Americans, the people that make $40,000, $50,000 a year, most people that don't live on the coast, those are what their most pressing financial needs are. And so we just decided to hit those on head on. We have rewards now too, so you get those as well. But I think just focusing on these most acute needs really served us well.
And early days, where were most, you mentioned that people on the coast, maybe for many of these companies, their target audience is people on the coast. Some maybe more in the middle of the country. Where did you target your first customers, and how did you build trust with them? Because given that you're relatively small, unknown, and they're going to trust you over like a JP Morgan Chase or a Bank of America. Walk us through that.
Yeah, it was really hard. When you're essentially a virtual company, the best way to develop trust is by developing a followership and people that will vouch for you online. But we didn't have any sort of geographical targeting, and that's one of the biggest benefits of our business is that we've got, from the early days, we have customers in all 50 states, and most of our customer acquisition comes from word of mouth and referrals. So, a family member, a coworker telling friends about it, that's what really worked well for us. And then over time, we've tried to do more to bring ourselves into the more physical world, sponsoring the Mavericks, doing a lot of television ads. It's not TV's not anywhere close to our top acquisition channel, but it helps to develop some legitimacy in the brand. And yeah, I don't know. We just rolled up our sleeves like grassroots marketing and a lot of paid acquisition out of the gate for sure.
But you did some revolutionary things, no fees, helping people out. And was that popular with your investor base? Did they like that model? Was that hard to recruit people to get behind on your team to do that?
Oh, it was incredibly hard. I mean, when you go out and pitch Silicon Valley investors and you say, hey, let me start slide one. Banking is broken in America. They were like, what? It isn't. Morgan Stanley's great. Goldman Sachs, it's all good. Now, if you pitch them on a black card that's going to pick you up like just by hitting the app, they'll invest in that all day. So it was actually really, really difficult to get people to have much interest. And it really wasn't until between our Series B and our Series C, where we had pitched people on the B, everybody pretty much said no. And then by the time the C round happened, we blew through all of our numbers. And it suddenly flipped where I had to, my tune changed of like, hey, I'm down here on Sandhill. Do you want to have a meeting? To like, I'll see when I can fit you in on my calendar here in San Francisco.
How good did that feel?
It was pretty cool.
So the future of consumer banking, who is your competition? Will Chase and Citi and those banks be able to catch up with you? Will it be other neobanks? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we fish where the fish are, and the primary account relationships in America are primarily at the big banks. So that's mostly where our customers come from. If you look at tracking surveys, we do one every 6 months. We track for people that make up to 100K, 75% of America, who've switched their bank account, what is the number one destination that they switch their direct deposit to? And Chime's consistently been number one in that. And they mostly come from essentially the distribution of market share in America for banking. So 50% come from the top 5 or 6 banks. Then there's the regional banks and the long tail of community banks and then alternative financial services. We're mostly getting consumers from the traditionals. Of course, it's become more in vogue. It certainly wasn't when we started pitching investors, we're going to get direct deposit accounts. That's definitely something more and more companies and fintechs are talking about. So we treat them seriously and watch what they're doing as well. And
can they catch up with you, though? Because they have to charge fees for their existing infrastructure, right, to cover it.
Well, if you read Jamie Dimon's shareholder letter that just came out, there's actually a section that he writes in there about how difficult it is to, I was thinking we should maybe put it in the roadshow. But it talks about, and it's all public information, so I'm not sharing anything forward-looking or confidential or hypey. I'm just saying.
There's no lawyers in the room, don't
Right. If you read the letter, it essentially says it is incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for them to serve everyday people that have low balances, that don't fit their credit box, that they're not going to give a jumbo loan to or a Sapphire card. They just can't do it profitably. And so that's the real opportunity for us. We think that the winner in banking this segment of America is going to be a technology company that operates at an incredibly low cost structure and in a very Amazonian way, wakes up every day, figures out a way to lower costs and deliver value in the areas that matter the most to the consumer. And if you think about it, Chase, B of A, they're focused on banking us. Their product teams are figuring out what's the next thing that you're going to want. They're not trying to figure out what someone that's making $35,000 or $40,000 wants. They just aren't. So I'm not here to say that all the bankers are evil. I'm actually saying that they're just pragmatic. They're, economically, if you have, our cost structure relative to a big bank is about 1/3, and relative to a regional bank, it's about 1/5. So we have this incredible cost structure, and we're able to innovate in that we monetize primarily just through payments. When you use your card for everyday transactions, that's how we monetize the relationships, and it creates about a 70% transaction margin business.
So what's something about fintech that you think most people, we just had Ramp, we've got John Collison coming up next from Stripe. If we had the three of you on a panel, what would be the thing that you would say that they would disagree with? Like, what's your most controversial position in fintech today?
Well, I would say probably the biggest thing that people didn't think was possible that we proved wrong is that you can't build a big business through interchange. We got poo-pooed on that in every investor meeting, pretty much. Last year we did over $1 billion of revenue from interchange, essentially. What else? You have to have a bank charter in order to create a powerful business to serve the banking needs of everyday Americans. I think that's also not accurate. We've proven that wrong. And then maybe finally, it's not our core business, but we do offer some amounts of short-term credit extension and lending to our customer base. And so I would say it's also would be against conventional wisdom that you'd be able to develop a profitable lending and credit business for near prime and subprime consumers without having to rely heavily on fees. And we've proven that wrong too. So I'd say those are 2 or 3 things that probably are not what the typical investor might believe about the category.
One thing I know you well, and one thing you're very proud about is the team you've built. Tell us a little bit about the team and how you thought about recruiting and retaining folks. And
pushing 13 years in, there's been so many versions of the team. It's crazy to just think back and how important so many people who even aren't here were so critical at that phase. Not everyone is right for each phase of the company. The type of person that's working at a 50-person company is a little bit different than close to 1,500. I think I manage with a number of sort of common sense approaches to management. I believe very highly in direct communications, saying the thing in the room, squashing politics wherever I can, creating a culture of accountability where we're, holding each other accountable for our respective areas. And then, most importantly, I want to hire people starting at the leadership level that truly believe in our mission. And I think that's been really helpful in recruiting. There's a lot of people that, feel personally affected and the role that we play in this world really means something to them. So they're really proud to work here. And yeah, look, I think there was a period of time during COVID where technology companies kind of got soft and, people lost direction on what really matters. We work really hard here, and I don't need to ask people to work hard. People are passionate, and we're working every day, and we're on our phones, and just making sure that we're delivering for our members. So I always want to make sure we have people that sort of share those values.
A lot of companies in your position today are choosing not to go public and staying private and doing kind of tenders and things like that along. How did you and your team decide, or what was the decision-making process about going public versus staying private?
Well, we've been at this for 13 years. I think that this is a great opportunity for us to essentially just supersize our opportunity and ambition. I think, we're a reasonably well-known company, but I think this will help elevate that notoriety even more, especially, again, for a virtual company. It gives people that much more confidence that this is a company that, in fact, is generational and will be here to stay. It's obviously a great branding moment. We'll probably raise a little bit of money, too. We don't need to raise money. But look, I've had investors that have been involved now for 12 years or so, and we think it's the right time. We've raised quite a bit of money over the years. We could certainly keep doing these private sort of tender offers, but I think there's going to be a lot of value in us having a public currency. There's lots of fintechs out there with ancillary services serving adjacent product areas, adjacent markets that I think having a public currency will be pretty interesting as well.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about how you're using AI and technology given our summit. So please.
Makes sense. Look, we think that the best AI comes from the best data. Chime has the best data on the segment that we serve. 2/3 of our customers use Chime as their primary everyday bank account. They're doing 40 transactions a month or something in that zone. So it's their everyday app, and that gives us the ability to take data and use it to make better decision making on what amount of risk we want to take on people, opening up product benefits and so forth. And so we're embedding AI into all areas of the company. We've my co-founder Ryan, who was the original CTO, is kind of our AI czar, and we've embedded AI into the starting point in every division of the company for solving problems or starting an initiative. We start with AI and how AI can help us solve the problem. But just more tactically, we have 70% of our interactions are being handled by AI now from our members.
And how has that changed? So 5 years ago it was probably 0%, and now it's tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, over the past 5 years, it's been incredible. If you look at actually our financials, you'll see that the last 3 years, our operating costs for member services essentially it's actually declined a little bit over the past 3 years, even though last year we grew 30%, over 30%. So we're growing our member base, we're keeping our costs down, but cost is great, cost saves, but if you actually look at satisfaction scores, it's been incredible. I was listening to a call just last week, and we announced that you're talking to an AI-powered bot in the beginning of the call, and this guy was asking all these questions about when his paycheck was going to come, and the bot can pull so much more information way faster than a human could in the Philippines or something like that about, hey, your last 3 paychecks arrived on Wednesday at 12:57. I'd expect the next one at that point in time. We listened to another call where, it knew that the person was calling about a dispute. It offered them to get notifications. And at the end of these calls, people are like, I love this bot. It's like,
which is so interesting, right? Because we just talked about these are people who make 50 grand a year.
Yeah.
They're not tech forward people.
That's right. But they tend to be a little bit more needy, I would say, in terms of
Yeah.
They probably want a little bit more handholding because they're often living paycheck to paycheck. And so they just have more financial stress than probably most of us in the room do. So they do call a little bit more. So it is a real game changer for us to have a business that's scaling the way it is while keeping its cost structure flat. And I think, we've barely scratched the surface on actually making like real consumer products to help people think about, proactively managing their money going forward, where to move their paycheck when it comes, like all those sorts of innovations. We think that that's really our opportunity to win.
When you started using these AI agents a few years ago, did you replace jobs, and did that cause tension internally?
Yeah, I mean, we estimate that our AI represents about 1,000 jobs of outsourced agents that we had used in the past. So yes, we did reduce the amount of like humans that were answering phones in some of our call centers. It didn't affect Chime employees at all, but yeah, it represents about 1,000 people.
Got it. Before we have time for a couple questions, tell me about the Chime Foundation.
Oh, Chime Scholars Foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we took the 1% pledge. As I mentioned earlier in my remarks, education means a lot to us. So I think it's about a little over 3 million shares of Chime stock will be put into this foundation, and we help essentially just pay for kids that go to college, including people that are on non-traditional paths. So it can be a 4-year university, a 2-year community college. It could be for a trade school, and we find people that have grit and hustle, and maybe aren't necessarily getting straight A's and already have the scholarship, but might be helping out a parent or an older sibling that's got to take care of a younger brother and that sort of thing. And it's been awesome. We gave 500 kids last year scholarships, and our goal is to get to 10,000 in the next few years.
Got it.
So pretty excited about it.
Very cool. I think we have time for a couple questions if we have any in the audience. Okay, then I'll take one. So now that you've moved from New York to the Bay Area, are you happy about the Knicks or the Warriors?
I mean, I'm a season ticket holder for the Warriors, so once they were gone, I'm all in for the Knicks, man.
Yeah.
I grew up a Knicks fan. I remember John Starks missing all those threes in 1994.
This may not be the best audience to talk sports.
Sorry. Okay. Yes.
We're not getting a lot of. We talked about football.
Yes, I like the Knicks.
Anyways, well, let's thank Chris and wish him well on the IPO. Thank you.
Thank you.